And I just want to share with you like the power of partnership by showing you some of their data from the first half of the year into the second half of the year. Their hospital in the first half of 2013 had a 17.2% wellness plan enrollment, so brand risk. In the second half, they averaged 26.6. In the past 12 months, they have active OWP increased by 41%. In the first half of 2013, they had 57.1% OSAT. So 57.1% of their clients said, I give them a 5. In the second half, they averaged 85.7. This is a pretty amazing turnaround. Now, these doctors, as they're approaching here, it's Dr. Alicia Eisenstein and her sister, Jordana Rosen. They have a hospital in Evanston, Illinois, and they have just done a remarkable job, and I'm looking forward to hearing their story of how they translated partnership into that. Come on out.
Thanks for having us. Wow, okay, thank you. Thanks, Chris, for having us. I guess I go first, and then Jory will follow me. I have to say that when Chris first emailed us, my heart kind of stopped, because a year ago, Chris and I maybe were not on the right page just yet, and I think every time I got an email from field leadership, it was like, crap. And Jory knows me really well. I am kind of a no-filter person. I say what's on my mind, and it's like, this is not going to be good. And so when we got this email, it was like, call me right away. It's good news. And it's like,
It didn't say good news. It just said call me. And Alicia called me first.
and I always call Jory.
She's like,
Everything
oh my
goes
God.
by Jory. It's like,
Chris wants to talk.
Chris wants to talk, and it's going to be a 3-way conversation. So he called, he's like, do you guys mind sharing your story at NFL? And I'm like, are we going to NFL? She's like, yeah, it's mandatory. I'm like, okay, fine. I'm like, and you're coming with me this year, because last year I skipped out. Not one to go to meetings or anything. 10 years I've been with Banfield, and I'm like, okay, you're going to ask us to speak. I guess that's how you're going to get me here. So this is going to be our story of how we got to where we are. I think Dr. Kolb said it best. We're not used to being apart.
I follow her everywhere.
I know. He said it best, I think, at the beginning of the morning. When I signed up 10 years ago, I didn't know what I was getting into. I thought, this is great. I have my own practice. I was not planning on being corporate. I think Dr. Campbell said, are you orange? No, we're blue, but at that time we were orange. I'm like, yes, I'm orange. I'll open up a practice. This will be mine. The thing that was great about being part of Banfield was it was my own hospital, but I didn't have to do any of kind of the business aspect. The business kind of ran itself. I had someone to do my payroll. I had a website to be able to do all of my ordering, but it kind of was my own private practice in all sense of the word. So for 9 years, I was pretty much a private practice with the Banfield name on the front. Minimal interaction with field leadership in the Evanston area of the Midwest. We maybe had a medical director, we didn't. We maybe saw field leadership. I would send an email, it would maybe bounce back to say, sorry, I don't work there anymore. You'll maybe find someone new in a couple months. If we did have a field leader that came, the visits were cordial, but there really was no substance to them. It was, how's the weather? How's the day? You know, is there anything we could do for you? But I kind of looked at them like, I really don't know what that meant. I don't know what you could do for me.
That started 2 years ago when our field leadership came to our hospital, and we had our field director and the medical director come in, and me and Alicia are working, and they said, what can I do for you? And me and Alicia are like, well, what do you do? And I don't know how many of you guys saw the movie Office Space, but it was like the Bobs. You know, what
And
know,
literally, Jory said that to him, and I think we showed them the YouTube of that movie, and it was like, what is your job description? Like, we literally asked
and they
them that.
both looked at us, like, again, quoting a movie like Coming to America, you know, well, what do you want from us? And it was like this circular conversation that we couldn't really get out of. And they left, and that was 2 years ago.
And I think when they left, we said, it's nice meeting you, but you probably won't be coming back because we've never had someone last more than a year. That's pretty much where it ended.
So then, you know, last year at the beginning of the year, our field director came back and he said, I've put out all the fires in my practice-owned hospital, so I finally have time for you guys. And we're like, oh, okay, well, what does that mean? And Alicia maybe, well, a lot more than me, was not even willing to give him the time of day because she's run her hospital for 9 years. Fine, always gotten a profit check, and like some of the other doctors said, that's really all we cared about. We looked at the P&L, we saw a profit check, and that was it. That's like where we ended our conversation there. And he kept coming back, and he just kept, you know.
Why he kept coming back, I was not very nice to him.
He kept scheduling these meetings, like he would leave, and he's like, okay, I'm coming back in a month. And I mean, I hate to say it, but Alicia would actually like switch with some of the other doctors. She wasn't even there the days that field leadership would come in.
Thank God for Jory.
So
Unless she puts up with me, I don't know.
So I would sit there with them, and I'd listen to them, and again, I'm a little bit younger than Alicia, and so I'm not really set in my ways, and I would listen to them, and I'd be like, wow, they're not telling us how to practice medicine. They're not telling us that we're doing a good or bad job in surgery or what protocols to use, but they're using the same 3 pillars that they talk about here. So preventative care, client experience, and associate engagement. Those were the only things we ever heard, or I ever heard, from field leadership.
I was like, I'll be in exam room 1, or I have surgery. I'm like, whatever you do, just keep them in exam room 3, and I'll be in surgery. That's all. I'm like, I run a great hospital. I don't want to hear anything else. And I'm like, just you deal with them.
So over the couple of months, I kind of like approach in this sisterly way. They're not really saying anything bad. Like, they're really saying things that we believe in. So I believe in preventative care. My dogs get dentals every year. My dogs are up to date on vaccinations. My dogs are on 12 months of heartworm and flea and tick prevention. Alicia's animals are the same. So clearly our metrics aren't conveying that. So what are we doing that's not showing that to our clients, that we believe in this? And our field leadership, and I was really kind of open to hearing what they had to say, was able to show us that we don't have to be apologetic when we talk about wellness plans, when we talk about heartworm or flea and tick. We can talk about that with our own belief system and use our own examples with our own pets, that this is something we truly believe in, and we were able to convey that to our clients. And we're clearly having an impact on their experience as well with, as you see, our metrics with our OSAT scores, our wellness plan scores, and all of our other medical metrics as well.
Yeah, so I think even when, and Jory just came on as an official charter owner, so she was always part of it. So, but I was always the one getting all of the emails from corporate, and then I would kind of pass it on to her to be like, you deal with this. But I think everyone got that letter, I think in the middle of last summer. That was, we had to keep our OSAT scores up. We had to get the OWP above 22%. Oh, and 10 responses. Thank you. You see, like I said, it's Jory who has to deal with this. But like I said, it wasn't stuff that we didn't know. We kind of didn't know. But it was just stuff that we already believed in. We just weren't conveying a lot of it to our clients. So with the responses, we just always thought, okay, here's this thing at the end of, the invoice, but we just didn't talk to people about. So I think kind of our OSAT scores that were low, we just didn't talk to clients about. So all of a sudden we started talking to our team about, Jory started having meetings with our team.
That's really it. It wasn't just conveying it to our clients. What we learned from field leadership was how to be a leader, because we both went to veterinary school right out of college. We had no life experience whatsoever, and so having that ability to have someone tell you how to lead your team and really show you those key elements of making your team effective is really how we got those numbers up, because as we've heard, we can't do it alone. We need a team that believes in those things as well. So going to our team market meetings and being on those conference calls with our field director and then our medical director as well has been invaluable in leading our team.
Yeah, and I think when we went to Indianapolis to our Midwest charter meeting, and I think hearing everyone else was in the same boat, because at the same time that we heard your scores are low on your OSAT, your scores are low on OWP, you know, you're getting less than 10 responses. Oh, and by the way, you're also up for renewal on your charter. It was like the perfect storm for me to call my parents crying and me to call Jory crying and be like, Banfield's out to get me, and Banfield wants my charter, which I think everyone in this room, maybe at one point or another, maybe not, maybe it's just me, has felt that way. And I'm like, I'm doing everything right. I'm like, I have never taken a loss on my P&L. I show up every day at work. I'm like, what could they possibly want from me? And so it was kind of like that perfect storm all at once. And literally, I think that between Jory partnering with Nick, who has been amazing, Dr. Reinisch, who's been amazing, Chris, who I think now between all of us, that finally just are on the same page. We finally know, you know what, it's not that anyone's out to get you, and if you finally, I think it was me, finally understand, and I'm not so set in my ways, like I kind of am, that if we can just convey to our staff, and now that Jory has finally conveyed to me, that the OSAT scores are really just, if you do your job, if your staff understands everything, those scores kind of speak for themselves. You know, when I talked to Dr. Reinisch, you know, about that our OSAT scores are good, do I want them to be better? Yeah, you can always be better, but that's just me working with my staff, and those scores will speak for themselves. You know, the OWP, it's the same thing. We didn't do anything different except leading our team, and then also, I don't want to say those scores just happen, but it was a very short period of time that we went from quadrant negative.
No, we went from quadrant 3, because we always had a good renewal. We always educated our clients very well about what the wellness plan meant, and almost to a detriment, or you know, we didn't have such a high enrollment, but a very high renewal. And in the last period of 2013, we were in quadrant 4. So we also did that. So I think a lot of when we were talking, who had the slide of being in the boat and not rowing, you can row or you can drag the bucket or you can get off the boat. We were probably suntanning. I don't think it was so much that we really weren't rowing or we were dragging. You know, I think there are just some of us that maybe just wanted to work on our tan. The business was running itself, and that's the thing with Banfield, is that you have the built-in clientele, you have the built-in marketing. If you show up to work, you're going to do okay, and that's where we were. We were doing okay to good, and when we really just put a little bit of effort into it and we made those connections, that's when we really became great.
Spectacular.
And we're on our way to spectacular. So thank you so much to everyone.
Thanks for listening to our
leadership. We really appreciate it. Thank you, Chris, for this
You're
opportunity.
saving us to the 5 minutes, aren't you?
Okay.
Thank you very much for listening.
What an awesome story. And I think it really highlights that whole partnership. How many of us are not connecting with the people who really help us become spectacular? I'm not going to spend very much time talking about field leadership. I think we've hit on them enough that it is our field leadership that is going to help connect our efforts to our goals. And so I have here the picture of the forest for the trees. I think that we're at this granular level, we're seeing our hospital, we're dealing with our clients. Field leadership has the opportunity to see things from above. I think that, who over here? It was Pat Coffeen. He said about the captain and lieutenant, just able to see the battlefield from far away. So I'm not going to talk very much more about that. The other thing that I just really appreciate